to Voices from the Mines, brought to you by Ziva Community Initiative. My name is Umesi Daniel Chukwemeka. Like we do every Friday from 9 to 10 a.m., we bring you the voices from the mines, the conversations around the role of artisanal and small-scale miners in energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria. My name is Umesi Daniel Chukwemeka, and today on the show we'll be talking about sustainable earth and climate change. What exactly does sustainable earth mean? What does climate change mean? What when we say justice and climate justice, what do we mean by that? And on the show this morning, like we always have on Fridays, I've got with me a seasoned analyst, a seasoned guest, somebody who's experienced in energy transition and climate change is one I'm sure you want to hear about. We've got engineer Apollos Simon Samchi. He's the managing director of the Just Water Services Corporation and chapter chairman Nigerian Society of Mining Engineers in Jos. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, my brother. Good morning, Plateau.
Good morning, sir. It's good to have you.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day.
Yeah.
And before we go into the crux of our conversation, what does Earth Day really mean?
You all know that the earth is our home, and it is only natural that we celebrate the earth because it's the mother of life. And so a day is set every year to celebrate the earth.
It's going to celebrate the earth, people. Let's go on our first breather. When we come back, we'll dive right into the meat of our conversation. Today we're talking climate change, climate justice. What does climate justice mean, really? Does justice need to be in the conversation we're talking about climate? All of this and many more on the show.
Every Friday on JFM, energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria takes center stage, explaining the role of ASM in energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria, with their objective to advocate and campaign for a full implementation of the Nigeria Energy Transition Plan and other global policies and treaties. Join Emeka Umesi and our seasoned resource persons on the role of artisanal and small-scale miners in energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria. Fridays 9 to 10 a.m. only on J101.9 FM. Powered by Ziva Community Initiative, advocate for a sustainable community with support from Africa Center for Energy Policy.
You're still on Two Voices from the Mines, and like we said before, we're talking this morning about sustainable earth and climate change, climate justice rather. Like we mentioned before, this is Earth Day happened. Which day did Earth Day happen, sir? Earth Day, what days are they celebrated?
Usually, is it 20th or 20?
I think it's 20.
Well, I know it's
22nd, yes, 22nd of April every year. The thing for this year is our power, our planet. Now it is bold and empowering, but from a perspective, what kind of power are we really talking about? When we say our planet, our power, what is this power we're talking about? Social power, economic power, political power. What is this power that we're talking about when we talk about Earth Day?
To me, I would want to look at it in this way. It's not when you talk about power in Nigeria today. A lot of people think you are talking about political power, but our power, our planet is this year's slogan for the World Earth Day, and to me is a call, to everyone, inclusive. It's an invitation for everyone on Earth to come, in support of clean energy generation, especially when we are looking at 2030, just 5 years to come. We're supposed to have tripled our renewable or clean energy generation. So this year, the slogan is meant to harness, to bring everybody, to the know of the need for us to go back to clean energy.
So the need for us to go back to clean energy. Now, speaking of clean energy, when we say sustainability, it often feels like a buzzword. Could you explain what true environmental sustainability looks like in practice, both on the global stage and in our everyday life as Nigerians?
Yeah, we'll be talking about the earth, and sometimes you hear us interchanging with environment. The two, we cannot separate them. I mean the earth and the environment. And environmental sustainability is just the use of the resources that you find in the earth.
Okay.
Responsibly. You discover that the earth, as I said, is the mother. It has everything that the human life depends on. Is it the mineral resources? Is it the water resources? Is it the petroleum resources? All the resources, are found in the earth. So renewable environmental sustainability is our ability to be able to use these resources, with the focus on the future, so that you solve today's problem, and still be remembering that in the future you are also supposed to be able to use these resources. So that is, in the layman's language, what environmental sustainability is.
Just to dial down on that, for the everyday person, are there certain actions that we do as people that goes against sustaining the environment? Are there things that we unknowingly do most times that leads us in that rather down the hill of getting, leaving the earth less than you might it, and what kind of things we can do as a people to have a more sustainable earth?
I tell you, if you leave man alone, he would just use all the resources today, and tomorrow he will lack what to use. So I give you an example. Just as we are here on the plateau, you just go out of the town or the city, so 3, 4, 5 kilometers away, you will see these miners, gathered in the field, just mining haphazardly, anyhow. That is one very good example of the use of the earth that is not sustainable.
All right. Let's segue from there now to climate justice. When I hear the word climate justice, first thing that comes to my head is, what does climate and justice, what do they have in common? In my mind, justice usually has to do with somebody committed a crime and you have to bring justice to them. But we talk about climate justice, so let's break it down into these tiny fragments. First, what does climate justice mean in its most layman sense?
It's just a situation where science, technology, and innovation, played a very vital role, to make life easy. But in trying to do that, a lot of unfairness has been done. So you should.
When you say unfairness, what do you mean?
Well, first of all, we have been unfair to the earth herself, okay. And we have also been unfair to ourselves, human beings. In the 70s, there was this industrial revolution, and a lot of gases, were released into the atmosphere. A lot of other, dust and so many other particles have been released also into the air, just because we're industrial in the name of industrialization. So there are countries that were responsible for this, and there are countries, especially in the developing nations, that their industrialization has not gone to any level, and so it is a kind of producer pays principle. Okay. So the justice, climate justice, is a principle where though the person that has produced the much of the gases and then destroyed the earth, and the environment should also do something. And what do you need to do? So it's about social equity. It's about the vulnerable countries or communities. It's also about the earth herself.
So let me break down again. I'm going to dial down on that. When you say social justice, an example of that would mean what? So, for example, again, let me from an experience, I know that industrialization happened in countries like in Europe and America, right? While Africa did not at any point in that phase of industrialization get any. What does social justice in regards to producer pay, like you mentioned, what does it mean for us as Africans? What does it mean for us as Nigerians? Does it mean we get money from them? Does it mean we get resources from them? How does it work in terms of us as a people who were not involved in the earlier stages of industrialization?
We talk about the rights to development. We also talk about shared benefits or burdens of climate change.
When you say, hold on, sorry. When you say shared burdens, what exactly do you mean?
Well, as a result of climate change, I mean, as a result of emission of these greenhouse gases and other, industrialization procedures, a lot of harm has been done to the environment. And it is not only ending in those places that the industrialization is taking place, but it's a global thing. It affects us. So we, the other people that have been affected, you also need to be taken care of,
Okay.
especially in terms of development. We also need to be taken care of. I'm saying we because we are part of the vulnerable communities. We also need to be taken care of in terms of decision making.
What do you mean decision making?
Well, okay. For example, if the organizations, would want to do something for a particular community to benefit, you just don't get to hand over the benefit to them without being involved.
Okay.
So they have to be. We have to be participants in deciding,
What we need,
what
what
we
we want.
what we want as far as the situation is concerned.
Okay, now, still on the issue of climate justice, as an experienced person, somebody who is very much involved in this, would you say that as a continent, as a country, we are getting justice for the things we've been through? Like you mentioned, these people have produced a lot of this, the gases they have emitted has caused climate change that we were not part of initially, but are having to deal with its consequences. Is the justice system being meted out by the global West or the global, powers that be? Is it commensurate with what we deserve, or are we being shortchanged in that sense?
As far as I'm concerned, we'll be shortchanged, because you discover that most of this negative impact of climate change, are already being felt.
Yes, true.
And nothing has been done, globally. We have not been encouraged, to also leverage on technology as developing nations to meet up with the effects of climate change. We are just left behind, probably because we are not interested, probably because of our policies, probably because we do not have a voice. But the situation is such that I would say we have been shortchanged.
We definitely have a shortchanged. A lot of people feel like individual actions like recycling or switching to renewable energy don't matter in the grand scheme of things. What would you say to someone who feels powerless in the face of such a global issue?
Well, this is more like an individual responsibility. I think what we need to do is enlightenment, because in the past you see people doing their activities without the sense of trying to see whether they can reuse something,
Yes.
or they can recycle, or but president, I mean, just recently you can see some level of people imbibing the action of trying to engage in this reuse and recycling method or processes. People, if you go around, you see even small boys or people scavenging for either plastics. You see them scavenging for metals. Trying to get some small wealth out of it. And so I think there's a level of acceptance, except that we have not gotten there yet.
Well, speaking of reuse and recycling, how effective are personal, individual contributions to the global scale of things? Because, like you said, when we look at, for example, greenhouse gas emissions, there are certain countries that have been in the forefront of greenhouse gas emissions. The Chinas, the Americas of this world, the industrialized nations have been at the forefront. When we also look at the use of plastic waste, these people have also been there because of their high consumption rate. As Africans, as Nigerians, our air quotes, little efforts, do they have any meaning on the grand scale of things? For example, if somebody from Tudunwada, disposes his waste indiscriminately, or drops his waste bin on the waterway, does it have any effect on the grand scale of things? Are we just being unnecessarily burdened to do the things that do not matter at all when we talk about climate change and how it affects us?
Well, I tell you, there's a lot of things that needs to be done. We still have a long way to go as far as our culture is in Nigeria is concerned, and Africa at large. We have still not gotten there, just as I've told you. We see situations just the way they should just come and go. But we need to take it, headlong. We need to be individually responsible to some of these things. If I give you an example. If you go to the developed world, you will discover a lot of innovations and technology, that have been done in terms of renewable energy. Well, in Nigeria, our policies, they are there, yes, but I don't know how much we have gone. And then the enlightenment, even on the individuals, we are still far from what is expected. If you go to China today, you discover that every vehicle, on the number plate, is distinct. If you see a vehicle with a green number plate, that means it is an electric vehicle. If you see a black or white number plate, it's petrol driven.
Yes.
But I tell you, I've been to Beijing, where I tried to count the number of. I've been there for 1 month to count the number of petrol stations. I don't think I saw more than 5 in the whole of Beijing. So you see, countries that are serious have gone far, and you come back to Nigeria, every corner, of the street is a filling station.
I wanted to pick your brain on that. When you talk about, the example, like give an example of China, you also made mention, like you said earlier, that these countries have gone through the industrialization process. And so maybe they are in another phase of the process where now they've made the wealth, there is a need to transition. As a people, as a country, are we at the transition level? And like you also mentioned, what are the things that we need to do more intentionally to ensure that transition is not just another buzzword that environmentalists and people who are interested in climate change know about? That the everyday person who is in the market, who is in school, who is in his house, also understands and imbibe the culture of energy transition.
I think what we need to do is a culture change, and it starts with individuals, and that is the call for this year's World Earth Day. Our power, our planet. We have to do it. It's an individual thing. If we are not able to start it, the government has tried. The policies are there.
Yes.
When you look at as far as environmental sustainability or management is concerned, or protection, the NESTRA is a federal government. It's a federal government agency. It came before, is it FEPA or something like that. Every state has a Ministry of Environment. Try to see how you can protect the environment. Plateau State has Plateau Environmental Protection and Sanitation Agency, and that is PEPSA. So the policies are there and the structures are robust. But as much as government effort is also there, people, individuals, houses, companies, and everybody, is supposed to, be responsible to this transition. The transition should not only come from the West or the developed nations, just as the industrialization, also came. And if we do not try to meet up, with the call, with the invitation, definitely even the world sustainability slogan will not be achieved.
Not be achieved. All right, let's move on quickly before we go to the commercial break and the calls. We hear a lot about just transitions, making sure that the shift to green energy and sustainable systems do not leave anyone behind. How can we make sure vulnerable communities are not only protected but empowered in the transition process?
You see, that is where the NGOs come in. That is where the civil society comes in. They will leverage on the policies of the government, has already kept in place, and then also, drive, this call for the transition. If not, at the end of it, I told you initially, as far as Nigeria is concerned, I'm sorry to use this word, we are careless, about, our activities concerning the earth, the environment. So there is need for us to really wake up from our sleep.
There's a need for us to wake up from our sleep. You're still on to Voices from the Minds, brought to you by Ziva Community Initiative. Let's go on another breather. When we come back, we'll be asking further questions and also picking your calls. Remember, you can be part of the conversation by calling into the studio lines on 090-5566-6699 or 081-218-77777.
Every Friday on JFM, energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria takes center stage, explaining the role of ASM in energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria, with their objective to advocate and campaign for a full implementation of the Nigeria Energy Transition Plan and other global policies and treaties. Join Emeka Umesi and our seasoned resource persons on the role of artisanal and small-scale miners in energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria. Fridays 9 to 10 a.m. only on JE 101.9 FM. Powered by Ziva Community Initiative, advocate for a sustainable community with support from Africa Center for Energy Policy. Every Friday on JFM, energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria takes center stage, explaining the role of ASM in energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria, with their objective to advocate and campaign for a full implementation of the Nigeria Energy Transition Plan and other global policies and treaties. Join Emeka Umesi and our seasoned resource persons on the role of artisanal and small-scale miners in energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria. Fridays 9 to 10 a.m. only on JE 101.9 FM. Powered by Ziva Community Initiative, advocate for a sustainable community with support from Africa Center for Energy Policy.
You're still on to Voices from the Minds, brought to you by Ziva Community Initiative with support from Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP. And today on the show, we're speaking about sustainable earth and climate justice. What does it mean to say climate change, climate justice? What are our responsibilities in ensuring that the climate is good and that the earth is protected as it should? We'll be speaking with engineer Polo Simon Samchi on these issues. You can also be part of the conversation by calling into the studio lines on 090-5566-6699 or 081-218-77777. Sure, speaking of climate change, some people, especially those who are not very familiar with climate change, they often ask, how does this concern me? What are some of the effects of climate change in our everyday lives that people can see to testify that truly climate change is not just another buzzword that people just want to talk about, it is actually a real thing that affects them?
Well, climate change, by a very simple definition, is a shift, a long-term shift, in temperature, of the earth and weather patterns. I told you in the 70s and in the 80s, you can rightly say that rainfall in Nigeria starts from April to October, yes, or at most November. But the effect of climate change, over the years, I told you a long-term shift, is now a reality, that we are seeing right now. And all this, we have said is as a result of human beings' activities, especially, the burning of fossil fuel and other activities like in construction, in mineral development, that is mining, and so many other activities. So it's a reality. We are seeing it now, where even presently this is ending of April, and we have not seen any rain. So it's just something that, we cannot run away from because of our activities in the past.
With regards to agriculture, because one of the things I saw, one of the biggest issues, especially with sub-Saharan Africa, because we are very predominantly, farmers in this part of the world, is that climate change affects agriculture. For the average person, how does it affect agriculture? Because in my head, like you mentioned, there are increased temperatures across the world over time. How does this increased temperature affect agricultural produce and also affect agricultural culture as a people in Nigeria?
Okay. With increase in temperature, yes, you expect wilting of your crops. By wilting, I mean there will not be enough water, or heat will also fall on the leaves of, the leaf is like just like the system, the veins of a plant. When there's enough excessive heat on the leaves, yes, instead of photosynthesis to take place correctly, you discover that there is a wilting, and so these plants will dry off. You discover that not only the plants will dry off, even the soil itself, and if it interjects to so many kilometers, you discover that it becomes a drought, and there's no there's a direct phenomenon on human life and even the environment.
Direct phenomenon on human life and the environment. The phone lines are opened: 09055 666699 or 081 218 77777. We're talking sustainable energy and climate justice this morning. What exactly does climate justice mean? If you have questions for our guests, you can always call in to ask them, or if you have contributions, you can always call in to make your contributions. And if you have some queries or some questions that you are not comfortable with, please do well to call in and ask. The phone lines are buzzing. Let's pick our first call for the morning. Hello, good morning. Good morning, sir. Your name and your location. Solomon, please go on.
I'm happy to hear this conversation, and my question to our guest is this. Many people, especially in the rural areas, we don't know what is this climate change, and it's affecting us. In fact, like the temperature he mentioned, and how to control this climate change is another thing, especially in our communities, in our environment. So what are the things that prevent it, and what makes this climate change to just happen? Because though we have explained some things that make it just happen, but our weather is cold, but we discover that the temperature is always heat, and to prevent this climate change is always a problem in our community. So what are those things that we need to be doing regularly so that to prevent this climate change? Thank you very much, and happy night.
Thank you so much for calling. The phone lines are still buzzing: 09055 666699 or 081 218 77777. So I want to respond to his first question. I think he said, what can they do to regulate climate change, especially people in rural communities?
Yeah. In rural communities, you expect very low activities from the people because of their economic power. But first of all, the people in the rural communities are also guilty of bush burning, and that one also contributes to global warming and then climate change. They are also responsible to farming, which process will have to do with application of fertilizer and so insecticides and so many other things. So it's a practical thing. They are also involved in what would I call it, open defecation. So they are not being fair to the environment or to the earth. If they have to do that. Their level of the level of generation of waste, has to do with your economic power. So you expect, we don't have much municipal or solid waste, in the rural areas. But basically, you still find activities, that people do. And even if you don't do these activities, it's a global phenomenon. It must affect you.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, sir. Your name and your location. Sadiq, please go on.
Yeah, I will comment your guest. He has spoken very, very well, and he has enlightened us much more about climate change and its effect in our environment, especially on agriculture. But you see, when we look at all these kind of effects, there is lack of awareness, because no wonder you see that in some seasons, the food that we will harvest will be yielding, but in some other seasons, you see that the food are not that harvest are not that much. So what are we going to do in terms of making much more awareness, especially to the people at the rural area, so that they can take control of this climate change, especially this bush burning? If you have been to culture for some people during dry season, they will start burning bush up and down. If there is not much more awareness, I think the people will not get it right. And also the collaboration of these farmers. How are we going to enlighten the farmer when it comes to climate change in terms of which kind of crop are they going to plant due to the climate or due to the environment? All those things have to be put in check so that the people will be enlightened in terms of the climate change that is related to our agriculture. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you so much for calling, Sadiq Umar. Our phone lines are still opened: 090-5566-6699 or 081-218-77777. You're still on to Voices from the Mines, brought to you by Ziva Community Initiative with support from Africa Center for Energy. Africa Center, forgive me. Let me not miss this one again. Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP. Sadiq Umar talked about awareness. Do you think that there is enough awareness for people in the rural communities? And what other ways can we bring to their notice the things they need to do and what climate change truly means?
I tell you, my mother in the village doesn't know anything called climate change, and so that also underscores the fact that there is a lot of education and enlightenment that needs to be done about this climate change. They will just tell you the stories that in the past, we are supposed to have crops are supposed to have grown, and they are even thinking of going for weeding, but this is the situation now. So they will not even want to prefer to know what the problem is, and they will just say that the world is changing. Even them will say the world is changing. Of course, the world is changing. Things are really changing. The climate is changing. So there is serious need for enlightenment for people to be able to know. If people are enlightened, you will not find them doing illegal mining of tin, just as I said. Yes. And if people are enlightened, they will not cut down trees, in the village, in the bushes. If people are enlightened, they will not produce coal, by burning very heavy trees in the bushes. So as far as they are concerned, it's what they will be able to get today, and then take care of themselves and will not want to think about tomorrow.
So how do we bring it to their awareness? Do we need to start going to this community to preach to them? How do we ensure that these people in these communities know what it is and do what is right? What are the practical steps you can suggest that we do?
I've talked about civil society organizations that are concerned about the environment. I've also spoken about NGOs that are environmental friendly. Government also has a robust structure of disseminating information, except that I don't know if they have to be strengthened. But National Orientation Agency, in the past have been involved in this enlightenment seriously about the environment. Other government agencies are also having the responsibility of doing that. Individuals, can sponsor enlightenment programs, just as we are doing now with the Ziva organization. So we need to enlighten the people in the rural areas, and even in the urban centers. You find a lot of people, who do not know about this climate change.
A lot of people don't know about this climate change. Let's go on another breather. When we come back, we'll still be speaking with our guests and picking your calls, answering your questions, and listening to your contributions. This is still Voices from the Mines, brought to you by Ziva Community Initiative. And today, we're talking climate justice.
Every Friday on JFM, energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria takes center stage, explaining the role of ASM in energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria, with their objective to advocate and campaign for a full implementation of the Nigeria Energy Transition Plan and other global policies and treaties. Join Emeka Umesi and our seasoned resource persons on the role of artisanal and small-scale miners in energy transition and climate change mitigation in Nigeria. Fridays 9 to 10 a.m. only on JE 101.9 FM. Powered by Ziva Community Initiative Advocate for a Sustainable Community with support from Africa Center for Energy Policy.
Still on to Voices from the Mines, brought to you by Ziva Community Initiative with support from Africa Center for Energy Policy. And today we'll be speaking on sustainable earth and climate justice. It's been an interesting conversation as to what climate change is, what we can do as a people, and what the mindset shifts and that are needed to ensure that we keep the earth protected. Well, leaving for the people's individual, actions and their inactions, let's talk about the industries, many of whom are great contributors to the issues of the earth being destroyed. Are these industries doing enough in terms of protecting the earth to ensure that the communities around them do not get to suffer? I ask this question because I have a very good example of a textile company I used to know back in Lagos. At some point when they started, there was a very robust and put together process that ensured that their liquid waste was disposed properly. Then after a while, business got bad. After a while, lackadaisical attitude came into play. And then instead of them to properly dispose this liquid waste that very much contained a lot of chemicals, what they did was they just disposed this waste in the river borders close to the company. And of course, you know how it is in Nigeria when power comes to play, the everyday person seems to not have enough, voice to speak out. We've also seen situations where companies, I'm using examples of the ones I've seen firsthand, release a lot of gases into the atmosphere. There's one in Lagos, I won't call their name, that does that without fear or favor. There is absolutely no care for people around them. You see that these gases are bad. We know these gases are bad. And they do it consistently. As a people, as a nation, are we truly holding these companies accountable for the waste they produce and whether or not these wastes are being recycled or disposed as they should?
That is why I told you that we are still very far behind, and we need to wake up. The protocols are there for you, to use, even as a manufacturer or a producer. Whenever you are producing, for example, the textile that you've just talked about, there are a lot of chemicals that are used, in the textile industry. What they are supposed to do, the protocol is there, it's been provided by the environmental authorities.
Yes.
They are supposed to have treated, this liquid waste, to an acceptable level before they are discharged into any channel or any stream. But you've said it all. It's either the enforcement is very, very poor or it's not there completely. So we do not only need enlightenment in this case, we also need enforcement. That is one very serious area that government is supposed to look at. The whole I was in Kaduna. It's not only government, private agencies. I was in Kaduna the whole of my early life, and all of the time that the refinery in Kaduna was there, then at that particular time, there was this gas flaring, 24 hours, 7 days a week. 30 days or 31 days a month. You know, for all the years that I was there was gas flaring. So even the government itself is not
complicit.
is complicit in all this. So I don't know how we will be able to enforce since government is also involved.
Speaking still with these companies, you talked about how, like I think you said this here before, that we have the laws, but the enforcement is the problem. As everyday people, who many of us get to deal with the consequences of their indiscriminate disposal of waste, either solid, liquid, or gaseous, what right do we have to call these organizations to power? And what is the process like to say to them, first, you don't have a right to, because it's a community, we are the ones that will be there for long. Many of these companies, after they are done, or if business doesn't go well, they can always up and leave. However, the effect of the actions would live with us forever and our generations. What can we do as a people to call them to order? Are there processes that we can go through to bring the authorities to come look at it? What are responsibilities in ensuring that these organizations do not just do what they can, what they want to do, and leave us dealing with the consequences afterwards?
As a community, you have every right. That is why we are talking of the climate justice. You have the right, to challenge the companies. You have the right to also challenge government as far as preserving your community is concerned.
So we have a right. So what's the process like? Do we take them to court? How exactly do we get to enforce our rights on these people who consistently trample on them?
There are situations where you approach government authorities in charge to be able to do that for you. There are situations that you go to court, and seek for redress, and so many other international organizations that you can approach.
But the phone lines are still open: 09055 6699 or 081 218 77777. Sustainable Earth and Climate Justice is our conversation for the morning, and we're talking about how, as a people and also as organizations who get to dispose waste indiscriminately in our environment, what we can do as a people, what climate justice means, and how we can ensure that the earth is safe for me, for you, for our brothers and sisters, and our future generations. 09055 666699 or 081 218 77777. Let's have a conversation this morning, people. What are some of the things you've noticed and you'd want to bring the attention of the government to? What are some of the questions you have when it concerns climate change and climate justice? And what efforts are you also making to ensure that we have a more sustainable environment? And my last two questions for you. The first one, you talked about government efforts that needs to be done more. What are some of the everyday government efforts that you think should be increased to ensure that a sustainable earth isn't just another idea, but it becomes a reality? Before I answer the question, hello, good morning. Good morning, sir. Your name and your location.
Is this dumping of refuse affect climate change too? I don't know.
All right then. Thank you so much for asking. He asked if dumping of refuse, if it affects climate change. That was my question was headed to. Does it affect climate change?
Yes, it does.
How does it?
If you dump refuse, especially in drainages,
Yes.
you at the end of it you have flood, and flood is one of the effects of climate change.
So what can the government do, especially with simple yet everyday problems like dumping of waste? Some people would say things like, I don't know where to dump my waste. I don't have any other options to dispose my waste. So are there efforts the government can do or are doing to ensure that everyday issues, especially with something as solid waste disposal, is taken care of?
It starts from the individual, just as I said. Right from the home, you generate your waste. You should be able to segregate this waste. If it is plastic, you put it on this side. If it is paper, you put it on this side. If whatever is degradable, you also put. You have different polythenes, to store or to keep your waste until you are able to dispose of it. And now the process of disposal will also have to do with identifying the waste disposing zones. Like in Jos, you have the waste bins, Dano bins, placed on corners of the street where you just go, and dump or drop your waste. But the ones that you have segregated, like the plastic or whatever, you can also take it to the person that will buy. We feel, you can go get 500 naira, 1,000 naira by giving this. And if everybody does it, it aggregates much, and then you'll be able to see the effect. That you are able to collect the plastic in one place, you are able to collect this in one place, and then it reduces the amount, the volume of waste that you are going to dispose of. Now the disposition of the waste also has to do with a lot of scientific or engineered process. In very, very good waste management process, you find you have what we call the sanitary landfill. The landfill is just an engineered process of disposing your waste, where you have to line. You have the what would I say, the depression. You open up the depression and make sure you line the depression, so that there won't be any contamination or leaching, into the groundwater. Yeah. And so by the time you do that first layer, you also bring some laterite, do some form of compaction, and then you discover that the waste that you are finally disposing are very minimal, and then for over the years you have that place, the landfill, to be able to dispose of your
waste. I've got a few questions. First, you mentioned something that the Igbo man in me wants to ask for a question on. He talked about disposing plastics and selling them. How do people sell them? What kind of plastics are sellable? And what's the process of selling this plastic? Because I'm sure that many people do not know that their plastic that they use from their soft drinks or from the water, whatever it is they get, can actually make them money. So what is the process of selling these plastics, and how do they get to sell them? You see that they just come to the street. How exactly does this work?
Sometimes some people are ashamed that you go and collect 1,000 or 500 naira, or depending on how much you collect, you are able to collect. The plastics. But I tell you that every plastic, is sellable. Every plastic is renewable because you can recycle it, for another product. So it doesn't. I think the only thing that you cannot sell now is the degradables. Those ones that can be degraded by form of interaction with water and air, and then you discover that they form into organic, other organic substance. But metals, plastics, ashes are also degradable.
Can nylons be sold?
Nylon can be sold.
Wow.
Yeah, it's also recyclable.
So how do you sell them? What is there places you need to call, people you need to meet? What's the process for the average
That
person?
is where I'm very happy with the level of involvement of people. And right now, it doesn't used to be like this before, but right now, if you go into the corners of the town, you see people with somebody would stand with his scale, waiting for people to bring, and most of the time it's children that used to come with these things. What stops me from doing this and putting it in my boot and take it there to just even not for the money,
just because it helps keep the
environment clean. Yes.
All right, the phone lines are still buzzing. 09055666699 or 08121877777. We've got about 4 minutes left to the end of the show. We're picking 1 or 2 more calls, and I'm sure many of you have questions. Please do call me and ask your questions. Unfortunately, I couldn't pick your calls before. My apologies there. Let's have a conversation about climate change, sustainable energy, and climate justice. Our final question this morning, looking ahead, what's the biggest opportunity we have right now, whether it is policy change, a tech innovation, or a shift in mindset to really push the planet to a better direction? Before you answer this question, let's pick this call. Hello, good morning. Apologies there, 09055666699 or 08121877777. So looking ahead, what's our biggest, what the biggest thing we have right now to ensure that the earth is safe and that 20 or 50 or 70 years from now, we do not become like the other animals who went extinct because they could not survive.
The policy, I've said it here, is already there, it's robust. I feel what we need to do is to imbibe innovation and technology. You see, let me give you an example. We are talking about artisanal miners. You know, if artisanal mining, you know, can be very organized, you know, in this country, we have individuals, you know, companies that can mine uranium. And when you have uranium, you'll be able to generate clean electricity. You know, you have companies, you know, right now that are mining lithium, and lithium is the raw material that you need for electric batteries, rechargeable, that can drive a lot of machines like the cars and what have you. So a lot of things must be done around innovation. You know, in Nigeria, I have not seen any meaningful wind vein that is used to, because during my time in secondary school, I went to a mission school. We had a well that was being pumped by a windmill. You know, they have gone extinct now. I've not seen any, you know, even up to now since I left school. So we need, you know, technology. You know, like a lot of countries, you know, leverage on the wind, you know, to be able to generate power. Yes. A lot of countries, you know, have gone far in this issue of electric batteries and other things. So we have to leverage on technology and innovation. The framework, the policy is already there.
Just to have technology and innovation.
Yes.
To back them up. Well, unfortunately, let me pick one more call. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Apologies there. Where is this is the size of the package this morning? I would love to speak to him more, love to pick your calls, but unfortunately, like they say, good things always come to an end. But don't worry, we'll be here again next week Friday, same time, same station, and more interesting conversations for you. This has been Voices from the Minds, brought to you by Ziva Community Initiative with support from Africa Center for Energy Policy. And this morning we'll be speaking to none other than a seasoned guest who has helped us understand what climate justice means. We're speaking to Engineer Paulus Simon Samchi on climate change, sustainable energy, and climate justice. And here's our Johnny questions in this edition of the show. Please, sir, final words for people listening. If you want to give them a final charge, what would the charge be?
The final charge is that climate change has come. We're already feeling the impact. It's negative. And so everybody, you know, has to join and answer the call that our power is our planet.
Our power is our planet. Bye-bye, people. Stay out of trouble, spread love, and seek the truth. Adios.